And, um, we're welcoming, hello, everyone to boost your visibility because you need to.
Right.
And especially on LinkedIn, if you're still introducing yourself as CFO, you're missing the boat, my friends. Missing it. Or, marketing manager. And then you
Right.
think, "Ooh, now I'm a senior marketing manager." What? No one like you care, but we don't know the
Right.
difference. We
Right.
don't know that means now you control the P&L,
Right.
or now you are, touring with T Swift. We don't know that. I don't know. I don't know that. I mean, you could gander, but I don't want to have to read all the words. Just tell us what you are. And I think that this is a
Right.
problem for everyone. If
Yeah.
you are just thinking like, well, I know who I am. I challenge you. I am Allison Lane, and I help women get book deals and launch their books like the pros. And I am joined today by the dominatrix of words, Chris Jones. Hello. She is the
Oh, I'm
ringmaster.
keeping that. I am keeping that.
Oh, you
Mhm.
are welcome to it.
Yeah.
It's Friday afternoon, and we're just here to have fun. And
Yeah.
I hope that you are too. If you are just joining us, then put one-liner in the chat so we know that you're here. And tell us where you are. That would be super helpful because, are we like, I'm East Coast, Chris is West Coast. Even though I'm East Coast, I do love some Snoop Dogg. Chris, if you tell me you're like an only Biggie Smalls kind of person, I would say we can blend now. I'm kidding. I don't know if Chris is like, I only listen to Barry Manilow, in which case it's cool. It's cool. I
I do
love
have
you
a very,
anyway.
very funny Barry Manilow story for you for another time. But yes.
What? Another time? Dang it.
Yeah.
No.
Yep. You want me to tell you right now?
Yeah,
Oh, we've
please.
got someone here. So years ago, I was on a road trip with a friend, and we were in Bend, Oregon, and we went to this is like back when you go to a record shop or a CD shop.
Oh, in the
And
olden days. Okay.
we just had no music, and we went in there and we decided that we needed to get the Barry Manilow CD for the car. But we were ashamed of it. And so we
Oh,
went over to, oh, completely. I mean, come on. I mean,
I
yeah.
know.
So
Wow.
we couldn't find it. We go over to the guy who worked in the shop, and we whispered, where's the Barry Manilow? And he announced it to the whole shop, like very loud. Oh, you're
No.
looking for Barry Manilow? Yes. So yes, we
Oh,
were
and the
humiliated.
shame, the
The
shame.
shame,
Well,
shame, yeah.
where I can see, hello, that we have so many interesting detours that we could take. But today, where I really want us to figure out how to give people a easy first step to introduce themselves. What is their one liner? And before we get to that, let me tell you about all the problems I've had as I have climbed the corporate marketing ladder for 25 years. You are conditioned to titles. You introduce yourself as titles because in the in the industry, the difference between a CMO, chief marketing officer, or a promotions manager, and the nuance, but you don't you think you do, but you don't. And it's super hierarchical too. I'm an associate manager, I'm a manager, I'm a director. But even within any industry, your titles at your organization or your company are different than titles somewhere else. And they are, even if you're president here, you could be a senior VP over here. So if you're thinking like, no, I've climbed it, I really want people to know I'm an SVP, people don't know what that means. And I fell into that trap because for, forever and ever, when God was a boy, that's when I started working. And when my first job was essentially faxing. Does anyone remember that? You can put fax in the chat. Like the age of faxism. And right, that was back in the day. And it was a big deal to introduce yourself as this or that. And you get kind of used to it, but it doesn't say what you really, the value you bring, until we started like flipped to everyone was like a storyteller. Do you remember that? Everyone was a corporate storyteller. And you're like, what the hell does that? No one knew what it meant, and it was fancy. And then everyone's social profile was like, I love coffee, or I'm a tea person. Also, not helpful. Then when I left my big time corporate cushy, career after 25 years, and I started helping women get book deals, people would say, how do I introduce you? Like, what's your title? And I'd be like, And in my head, I'd be thinking, well, there isn't someone like me in publishing, because everyone who does what I do in publishing used to work at a publisher. So they were an editor. Am I an editor? Editor is like saying I'm a human. It's like everyone's an editor. I breathe air. Like it means nothing. Am I an editor? Sure. Am I a storyteller? Am I a book coach? None of these things matter. And I would just trip over myself trying to put a stamp on something that there's no stamp for. And also, who gives a poo, right? So eventually I just said, I don't do that. I help women experts get book deals, women whose books might never get published because they are experts in their field. They don't have time to be like Mel Robbins, who used to be an attorney and now she's just a speaker. I say just of, I mean, she is a big deal, but she used to be an attorney. She's not anymore, but when I meet these women is they'll say, oh, I'm an attorney. And I'm thinking, are you a mob boss or do you protect the rights of children? These are two very different things. Tell me, or worse, they'll say I'm an author. Like, nope, that also means I'm a writer, but it doesn't help you. So tell me what happens when people like me, and I've fumbled it as well. When we fumble, what are we doing to people other than purely confusing them?
Well, we're missing an opportunity for connection. We're not meeting them where they are. We're either talking over their head, using language that they don't understand, and the conversation then falls flat. Or we're giving them a 2-word answer, which also means the conversation falls flat. So the other thing is like, just even hearing that question can make you feel uncomfortable, cringe, stumble. Like, it's such a common question in our world, right? All over the world.
Why is it so confusing? Why? Why are we so confused by this question?
It's because we are experts, right? We're so close to the work that we do that we're really like, it's kind of like we're inside of a bottle trying to read the label that can only be read from outside the bottle. We have forgotten what it's like to not know what we know. So we have all these
Whoa,
words.
hold on.
Yeah.
What did you just say? What was that mic drop moment that you just did? What was the thing? Say it again.
We're so close to our own business, our own selves, that it's like we're inside of a bottle trying to read the label that can only be read from outside the bottle. That is why this happens. It's so hard to find the words that communicate clearly what we do. And so we've really forgotten what it's like to not know what we know. This is why we use that terminology. We can't remember. And in order to create a clear one-liner, we have to rewind our brain back to when we didn't know all the things that we knew, and speak clearly and simply.
I think that we can't get simple enough. I once dated a particle physicist, and I dated this guy, and I still don't know what that means. And his whole job was to discover the origins of the universe. And I was like, nope, I'm out. I mean, maybe I'll just give him a pass, because we were not a match. But for everyone else who responds with that 2-word answer, like I'm a professor, or I'm a teacher, like, oh, what do you teach? 7th grade. Do I have to go fishing? Must I is it my job? I'm literally asking about you. Why is it that people, it's almost like they come across annoyed because they don't know, so you teach 7th grade, special ed, language arts, gym.
Right.
Can you?
And a more interesting way to answer that question would be, let me share just very briefly the arc of every story, which is also the arc of your one-liner, which is,
okay, good.
You always start with the problem, and then you position your job as the solution to that problem. And then you paint a picture of what success looks like for the hero that's struggling with this problem. So it's
so do me, because you know what I do.
I want to do the 7th grade. I want to do the 7th grade teacher.
Fine.
And then we'll do you. Don't
My
worry.
mom taught 7th grade, so that's why I chose.
Oh, did she? Okay, so let's pretend you're your mom. So you could start out like, what do you do? Well, Allison, a lot of 7th graders really struggle with science because they don't have a way to engage with it, and it ends up going over their head. I'm a science teacher who makes learning about science really fun, so they can cultivate a lifelong love of learning about science and be successful in that area for the rest of their learning career.
Well, I love that.
Right? So all I did was I started with the problem that 7th graders had around science. And then I introduced what I do. I'm a 7th grade science teacher who makes learning fun. And then I painted a picture of what success looks like for those heroes, those little heroes that are having that problem.
You know what I really love about the language you just chose is that it wasn't hoity. It wasn't like, fuel passion. Like, people don't talk like that. And it's on paper. And I think that when we try and figure out how we're going to introduce ourselves, we do it on paper. And our word choices tend to be not things that we would actually say out loud. And they somehow they're more formal or
Yes.
contrived.
Right.
And
A good
um,
a good one-liner is very conversational and casual. It's something that people can follow because it's everyday language. Like, I really like people to envision themselves in a coffee shop, and someone behind them in line asks them that question. You're not going to like all of a sudden use this formal language. You want it to feel casual and off the cuff. But what I want people to know is that it is not off the cuff. This is something that you spend time crafting. You keep it simple, make it feel like it's your own voice, but memorize it. Memorize it. And eventually it will just flow off your tongue. But it does require that you take the time to memorize it, and it will serve you in so many ways for years and years and years. And the beautiful thing about an effective one-liner, and this I think will be refreshing for everyone to hear, is that it's not actually about you. It's about the people that you work with. It's about the problem that you solve. And so Liz asked a question here about, so it always starts with a problem. Problems are interesting. Problems are interesting. Our brains cannot help but engage when a story begins with a problem. So yes, always start with a problem if you want to engage the person that you're talking with. And the problem means that you clearly articulate who you're helping and the problems that they struggle with, or pick the one problem that they struggle with the most.
Can you say that again about problems are interesting? What do our brains do when we hear problems?
Problems are interesting. Like, facts are boring. Problems are interesting. Any movie that you've ever been to, any book you've ever read, any story you've ever heard begins with a hero that has a problem they don't know how to solve. You can write that down. Every story begins with a hero that has a problem they don't know how to solve. And so we want to begin all our communications. I don't care if you're doing a one-liner, a social media post, an email to your audience. You always want to begin with the problem that your hero or your clients are facing. And when you do that, our brains, it's just true brain science. Our brains cannot help but engage. We can't help because we are problem-solving machines. And so it's like giving a dog a bone to chew on. We cannot help but just like get pulled in and engage with what's being shared.
Wow. When you were talking about the teacher scenario and introducing yourself as a teacher, I was picturing a kid in science class. It wasn't just the story. It was so visual for me. And you didn't even say, picture a kid struggling inside, but my mind went there.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just facts. I help seventh graders learn to love science, but because that's almost too pat. It didn't give that wouldn't have given my brain time enough to kind of follow you there.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. Totally. Yeah. And you talk about like many seventh graders, like, or you could say like a record-breaking number of seventh graders like fail science. They don't like it. Most seventh graders hate science. They sit there in class and they glaze over, or they check out, or they don't check in, they check out. And I'm a teacher who makes science really fun to learn. So yes, like that's a really good point, that our brains, that's part of our brains getting pulled in, is imagining what that looks like, or referencing, if we can reference that, what we were like in seventh grade when we were experiencing that.
The other thing about what you just said about the seventh grade grader who's glazing over is that you're also not explaining, like, in a cognitive development state, the 7th grader's brain isn't able to do this. Like that, it's almost too much. But I do
Right.
hear
Those were facts.
people.
Those are
Those
facts.
are,
Yeah.
and it's still, they might think, oh, well, I am describing it is a story, but I don't need to know why, or that they're not able to focus because of, their brain isn't fully developed that skill yet. Like, oh, well, do I need to know that? I just need to know that they're glazing over. And it's
Right.
not because they're trying to tune me out. It's because they can't tune in. But I don't need to know the can't or won't or whatever. You're just saying they are.
Here's a fun fact. Stories are 22 times more memorable than just facts. And part of our role when we're employed, is even when we're not employed, we want to be memorable. We want people to remember us. We want people to get us. And so stories, which is essentially what an elevator pitch one-liner is. It is the shortest version of a story. Now, of course, there are long stories like movies or books, but in its essence, a really good one-liner is a very, very short story. Problem, hero with a problem, guide with a solution, guides them to success. But if you remember the last movie you went to, it pulled you in, right? Like nothing in this day and age has the power to capture our attention anymore. We've got to-do lists, we're running around, we've got kids, whatever. We are distracted and overloaded with information. But yet when we go to a movie, we sit there, we don't look at our phone for 90 minutes. Nothing else has the power to pull us in that way. And the reason that we're so engaged is because the hero has a problem and we don't know if they're going to solve that problem or not. Now, if the hero...
Fingers crossed, right?
Right. Fingers crossed. Odds are. But if there was a ticking time bomb going off and they disarmed it in the first 15 minutes of the movie, you would very likely get up and leave the movie. There are no stakes involved. There's no problem to be solved. So that's why it's really important. Like our brains cannot disengage until we know that problem has been solved.
Oof. So our brains just really want to connect, but when you hear someone say, I'm a media scholar, like, right. It's almost like they're saying like 5 fingers to the face. I can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I
like
think
shout out to Victorious if anyone knows anybody from Victorious. Like, I love some 5 fingers to the face.
I think often we think our work isn't interesting, or we think it's boring, or we kind of make an assumption like, oh, the last 10 people I told glazed over, so nobody really wants to hear about it. But they didn't glaze over because what you do is boring. They glazed over because you either fed them too much information that they couldn't follow, or you gave them the 2-word answer that was also, they weren't getting it. It didn't invite them into an engaging conversation.
Yeah. This comes up to play a lot with the women I serve, who are all super badass. I mean, they are shaping our human experience. These women are, yes, they're leaders in their field, but you can't introduce yourself as that. But they're so passionate about their work that they're not like it's going to stop doing that so that they can just write a book. They're doing it and then packaging. They're still driving like scientific research, but they're packaging it so that it's available in a book too, to people who aren't in the industry, right? And then But they might also have a podcast, and they might also have all these things. But if they introduce themselves as, "Oh, I'm a podcast host," like, well, I mean, maybe that's one way that you're packaging the
Right.
value that you're putting
Yeah.
into the world. Author is
Right.
another way. But I
Right.
find
There
that when we peel back to, like, you are the spokesperson for the topics that you advocate for, I think you would even go deeper on
I
that to
yeah. I think that really these women that you're working with are really aligned with their purpose. They're in touch with the reason they are on this planet, and they're wanting to
oh,
make a bigger impact, right? And these ways of getting their message out there, like working one-on-one with people, is can be really limiting. It can be really fulfilling, but there's only so much time, right? So through podcasts and books, you can live on purpose and reach more people and help more people. And when you have a clear one liner and you also have a very clear kind of signature story about the work that you do, you get to check that off of your to-do list, and you never have to freaking rewrite it again. You just reuse that signature story and that one-liner everywhere. You put it in your social media profiles, you put it in your email signature,
right.
you say it verbally. It's like, it's the story, it's the tool in your toolbox that allows you not to have to spend a bunch of time marketing, because what you want to do is pour energy into your purpose.
Yes, amen to that. What you just said also reminded me, like, these women I work with, it's not like they're going to stop doing the thing that makes them an expert. Like,
Right.
but that's not their path. It's a ridiculous thing to even ask. Like, I'm going to quit being a neuroscientist so I can write books about neuroscience. Like, well, rethink, back it up, let's moonwalk that back a little bit. So maybe, I mean, you just sort of blew my mind, even though you were talking about, the women I serve, but don't we all serve them? Because I know you and I serve a lot of the same women.
We do.
I might be helping them package their genius into a book, but you're helping them just establish their digital headquarters, their website, which, yeah, I've joked, but your website, which I'm just sharing here, is so good. It's practically my saver. And I think that anyone who's thinking, like, what should I put on my website? Maybe go to Chris's website and just, like, look at how easy the language is. And yet you walk away knowing exactly what you would get from working with her, which is so, so interesting. And P.S., if you are part of my book launch league, or my a VIP who works with me, Chris is going to come and do a guest training with us in 2 weeks. So don't you worry. You're in it. Super exciting. Maybe now would be a good time to see if anybody in the comments wants to share their one-liner. Maybe you can sprinkle your genius on them.
Yeah, I mean, I would ask everybody here, if you're up for honing your one-liner. You don't even have to have a one-liner. All I
Yeah.
want to hear is, like, how do you typically answer the question, what do you do? How do you
Yeah.
typically answer that? And then we'll massage it a little bit, and you can walk away with
Okay.
something that feels more impactful.
Yeah. So while we're waiting for folks to share their, like, however they usually do that, let me just take you back to what what I used to say is, oh, I'm a book coach and a marketer. And I had to get away from that because people still said like, but how do I hire you? Like, what do I do? And they were so nice about it, as I would like say, like, I do this or that. And now I think the one-liner ish is, I think there's still improvement to be made because no one knows how to get a book published. For sure, when you're not a full-time writer, and everyone thinks that it's like the movies, like some sort of literary myth, and it's not at all. It's easier than you think. It's faster than you've been led to believe. And I help women experts get book deals fast and launch their books like the pros so that they can get back to what they're meant to do. That's what so I'm just sort of throwing this out there so that you can noodle that. Oh, we have some people share it. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
But before we dive into that, I want to ask you, like, when you get on the phone with a lead, you get on the phone with a potential client, what are the things that they are telling you that are frustrating for them or hard for them in their words?
Oh, I'm so I've paid for this, this, and this. And I just feel like I need to, I don't have the time to do these things or to spend more time learning and honing. I've already written half the book. How do I get it out there? Someone finally told me about you, and they said I have to talk to you. And and then I tell them, here's what it is. And they say, I had no idea that was the process. So that's, yeah.
When you say they don't have time to figure it out themselves, figure what out?
They don't have time to become experts in delivering packaging their book idea in the way that it's required. They think that they need to know somebody who's going to introduce them and pitch their book straight to a publisher. And that's not the way it works. You need a book proposal. You do not need to write your nonfiction book. In fact, please don't. You don't need to write your nonfiction book first. You need a book proposal. And then they say, oh my God, I had no idea I was going to take a sabbatical to write my book. Like, no, don't do that. I mean, take a sabbatical if you want, but don't do that. It's unnecessary.
You don't need to. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So
are you typing right now? Are you answering emails?
Yeah. Okay. So I think the most important part of this story is really the problem. Writing and publishing. So we want to identify who you work with. Number one. So many women experts, they want to write a book, but they don't have time to navigate the publishing process or
industry, the process.
The maze. Yes. They don't have time but are too overwhelmed to navigate the publishing maze. I help them launch their book in 90 days so they can make a bigger impact, get back to the work that they love, monetize their brilliance. These are
reach the people who need their message.
Right.
And on the way, monetize their efforts.
Right. Monetize their brilliance. So let's just summarize that and just button that up. And this is a starting point. So this is something that you'd want to massage and make sure it feels like your voice. That's really important.
Thanks.
But many women experts, they want to write a book, but they don't have time to navigate the overwhelming maze of the publishing process. I help them launch their book in I help them write and launch their book in 90 days or whatever time frame you do it in. But we
Mhm.
want to give them something concrete. You don't have to have a time frame in there, but it can be really meaty and it can
Yeah.
feel really good to know like, oh, I helped them launch their book in 90 days so they can reach the people who need their message and monetize their brilliance. Like,
Mm.
whoa, I am leaning into that. Oh my gosh, tell me like what types of books? Tell me more. Oh my gosh, my best friend is really wants to write a book. Let me connect you to.
Yeah.
So there's that's that's kind of the process for it. Okay, Jessica has 10 versions. Why don't you pick one that looks good to you, Allison?
When ambitious go-getters feel cluttered and all over the place, I help them create structures and systems that help them thrive.
Okay,
Yeah, let's start with that one.
cool. Ambitious go-getters. Are these, I guess,
Are they
I'm assuming
women?
these are professional people, professional women. Like, I'm having a lot of questions. You don't want people to you don't want your one-liner to create more questions around confusion, right? You want it to create questions
Mhm.
around, ooh, tell me more. So ambitious go-getter, I would define exactly who that is. Is it professional women over 40? Is it
Working mothers of toddlers,
yes,
toddler
yes,
toddler
totally.
moms.
And it
Um,
doesn't have to be, it can be both men and women. You could just say
yeah.
many millennials have many driven millennials um, feel cluttered and all over the place. Cluttered in what area? Like cluttered in is their home cluttered? Is their closet cluttered? You mean they're overwhelmed? They're and all over the place is a little bit too vague. So I think that we can definitely elevate this. So let's just pretend we're talking about many millennials. Let's see, start that help them thrive. Okay, here we go. We've got overextended, multi-passionate, get overwhelmed. Okay, that gives me a little bit more clarity. I would say like many, I'm just making this up, but many driven millennials under 30 are passionate about so many things that they end up feeling spread too thin. That is like a clear problem. Now I'm engaged. Now I want to know, like, okay, next, what's next? And you're like, I am let's see, systems. I help them get creative, clear, and confident. Okay, I help them set up systems that eliminate. I help them set up systems that unlock more creativity and confidence, so they can focus on the things that fill them up. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to do it on the fly, but you get the
Yeah,
idea
yeah,
of it.
yeah. Well, I think that's so good. I'm looking at the example here. Let's do one that is let's look at this one. When pet families aren't sure what decisions to make about their dogs, I
Mhm.
help them figure out what their dogs want or need.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Liz Murdoch is a client and a friend, and she is an animal communicator.
Ooh, love it.
She is
Okay.
brilliant. She has this amazing podcast. If anyone has not listened to it, oh my gosh, Talking with the Dogs. And her voice
Oh my
sounds
God.
like it's smiling. It
Oh,
is
amazing.
juicy. And now
Oh, I
Hazel
can't
is
wait to
waking up.
listen to that.
Hazel, come here. Auntie Liz is here. There you go. So it's-
Okay.
I
Okay.
know.
I
we're
would
talking about
say,
Auntie Liz.
okay. So, uh, I don't know how you feel about the word owner, but I think culturally people say, I'm a dog owner or I'm a cat owner. So you could say many dog owners love their dog more than anything, but feel a disconnect or but feel frustrated because they don't. Many dog owners feel frustrated. You can feel free to help me out here. Feel frustrated because they can't understand what their dog is trying to tell them, or they can't understand what it is they need, or they feel a disconnect with their dog because they can't figure out what they need. Something like that. That's a
Or
good
why
clear
they
problem.
do what they do. Yeah. And I
Right.
mean, well, like, perfect example of this one. Okay, so this is Hazel. She only wakes up when we talk about Liz. Like only. Okay, I mean,
Wow.
she
That's
comes
wild.
running. Otherwise, she's
Oh
just
my
asleep all day long. Okay, she's like that. So when we
let's
first
think.
adopted Hazel,
Mhm.
she would tinkle in the house, even though I was taking her out all the time. And Liz, bless her heart, told me how to create something like, well, the way I think of it is that she interprets. It's not like she's going into Hazel's brain and like telling me Hazel's secrets or anything. Hazel says, I don't have secrets. I'm sure you do. But she helped me understand how I could almost work with Hazel to have like a tell. So I know now when Hazel needs to go out, and it's not
Oh.
training. It's
Right.
it's not like, I said, okay, like every 20 minutes I'm going to take her out until we, like that's a
Mhm.
different type of training. But because I had the benefit of knowing Liz, she helped me get that. So now this is the most amazing thing. Now when Hazel needs to go outside, she climbs up on me and
Mhm.
puts her feet right here and looks me in the face.
Oh, wow.
And then after a while, and I'm home alone with her a lot. So I talk to her like a human and I say, oh, you need to go outside. Okay, well, thank you for telling me. You are so smart. And then she looks at me like, I really am smart. And I don't know.
Right.
But that's because of Liz. And I'm
Right.
sure Liz is thinking, she is smart and she does think she's smart. But if that's helpful, that's just one scenario.
Yeah. Okay. I think that, yeah, we can have fun with this one. This is such powerful work.
It really is.
It really is. So, I would imagine, Liz, probably most of your clients are women. I'm sure that they're, 80-20, right?
Mhm.
Just a hunch. But you could start. The problem is like many dog moms wish their dogs could tell them what they need. That's a clear problem. That's,
Full body chills.
I communicate directly with your dog and tell you exactly what they want, so you can meet their needs, feel more connected, and everyone is happier.
Mic drop. Yes. That's, what's interesting is Liz does a lot of like conference calls with families. 'Cause so many people, bring a dog into your home, whether you get it at wherever. It's usually
Right.
not a baby,
Right.
it
Right.
comes from somewhere. It came from
Right.
somewhere. And,
Right. Right.
and
Yeah.
animals have personalities, and they like certain things and they don't like other things. And sometimes you just have to figure it out. They also might not feel good, but you can't figure it out. So
Right.
there's a
Right.
lot of, and you
Right.
think, well, I just spent $900 at the vet just to have them tell me, maybe try a different food. And you're thinking, I
Right.
am going
Right.
to,
Right.
stab you
Right.
in the thigh with my keys. Not
Right.
that I felt this way ever.
Right.
I'm just saying that might be the way that you feel. And it's super frustrating to know that there is an answer, but you're not getting it. And
Yeah.
I think that's, you really hit on something. I'm so glad we're doing this. And
Yeah,
you're
Liz,
going to
I
meet
know.
Liz anyway, in the book launch league on the 13th. So.
Yeah, when my cat passed, I was devastated. It was years ago now, but I went to an animal communicator, and I can tell you, like, the grieving process was so much faster because I was able to get so much peace and have closure around that transition. It totally, whether you believe or you don't believe, it completely changed my experience and allowed me to feel way more peace. One idea I just had, like, just to show you, like, there's all kinds of ways to, pardon the pun, skin the cat. So, like, that might be one problem. If you want to speak more to families, I still think the mom is the one who probably initiates
initiates.
and pays. But you could speak to families and say, many families with dogs have no idea what their dog is trying to tell them. That is a clear problem, right? Now I'm pulled in.
Yeah. What Liz
Yeah.
is saying in the chat is it's not that they don't want to feel more connected. They want help with a specific concern. Like
Got it.
for mine, the
Ooh,
vet tests are
okay.
fine, but the dog's not acting normal. Or is it time for
Right.
euthanasia? That's very common.
Right.
Should I get another dog? They very specific questions that she has to have them write down before the session,
Right.
but not tell her, because the dogs actually answer the questions.
I love it. Okay. So you could say, this is an interesting one. I'm so glad, Liz, that you shared. So I would identify, like, thinking out loud here, many dogs who are struggling with health issues are trying to communicate with their families, but aren't able to get the message heard. That would be a way to really identify that, right? So, and then you would say, I help them. I unlock the communication between the dog and the family, or I translate what the dog is trying to say, so you can make informed decisions that will ultimately benefit the dog, or that will resolve this problem. Let's see here. Okay, got it. Yeah. Like, when your dog's not acting normal, it's hard to know. Here's another problem. When your dog isn't acting normal, it's hard to know what they want and what they need. I help them uncover the solution to their problem by communicating directly with your dog and giving you the answers so you can make informed choices about their health needs.
That's so meaningful.
Liz likes it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's iterative. This is why it's really fun to kind of pitch and catch and evolve it, to the point where it feels really good. And then when you get to that point, print it out in a big font, put it on your wall. Every time you walk by it, just say it out loud. And then you're going to eventually just totally have that in your cellular memory. And you're never going to cringe again when someone asks you what you do.
It's so taking the dog scenario. There are so many specifics to, like, your dog has a problem or it's not feeling good, or like my issue of Hazel tinkling in the house a lot every day. Oh my gosh. And I would just say, why? That's a totally different problem. And it wasn't about health and wellness. It was why?
Right.
Like, tell her to stop,
Right.
Just like, for the love of Pete, versus, like, we had a dog that died a few years ago, and boy, he was so sweet, and he came to us late in life, and he left us, a few years after that. And you never know when it's time, and that's a different problem, because it's not a surprise that your dog is 13, or your cat is. But Liz is also gifted with cats and other animals too, but she's a dog person, so that's why. But she told me a story one time about a school of fish. She was like, honestly, they're just not interesting. Because we're
right.
I'm sure she said it nicer than that.
You bring up a good point, though. Like, Hazel had more of a behavioral issue, and you were trying to solve that problem. So Liz, you might think about changing the problem to encompass that. So, like, many dogs have health and behavioral challenges and can't communicate their needs to their owner. That way, you're going to speak to the Allisons of the world, but you're also going to speak to the families that are trying to figure out the right health decision for their owner. So
I'm glad we covered that, because I thought you were going to say she should have two different pages on her site, one for this and one for that.
No, there's always a golden thread. And this is part of the work that I love doing. People, every call I get on, but I work with cats and dogs, but I work with health issues, and I also work with behavioral issues. There's always a golden thread that is a through line to your purpose that is overarching and inclusive to all the people that you work with. And that's why we work together, because we're all, as business owners, inside that bottle trying to read the label that can only be read from the outside.
This is so powerful too, because what we didn't have to cover was, oh, hold on. I think I locked my son out. Continue to talk. I have to let him in. Yeah, he is. Continue to talk. So, I'll be right back.
Yep, go for it. So, Liz, in this case, depending on where you are with your online presence, you can take this one-liner and put it on your homepage right when people land on your homepage. This is the problem that you solve. You put it right up in that header area, and then copy and paste it, put it in your social media profiles, and everybody else in their profiles is talking about themselves. You are not. You're showing your people that you care more about them than you care about yourself. Of course, you're positioned as the guide and the problem solver of this story, but it's really less about you and more about them. And then put it in that email signature of your email software, Gmail or whatever. So every email that goes out has this one-liner in it. And that way, effortlessly, every email you send, people are going to start to remember, oh, this is what she does. This is what the problem that she solves. And when they have a friend who has this problem, or when they're challenged with it themselves, you are the go-to expert for this. So put it on your business cards, print it on your wall. I mean, you could put a vinyl graphic on your wall if you wanted to. But the idea is your one-liner elevator pitch is great for conversation, really wonderful for conversation and connection. But it's also a great way to become remembered, and repurposing this is actually less work for you and way more effective for your business. So it's really this 1-2 punch that allows you to do the work you love and not spend a bunch of time trying to educate people about it and be remembered for it. So yeah.
It's so I love that. And what you just said too means that you don't have to say, oh, I have a podcast and this is what it's about. Or I have a book and this is what it's about. Or I offer, you can book one-on-ones with me so that we can do this thing, because that almost makes it more confusing.
Right.
Like
underneath your, like, if let's just say it was the one-liners living in your email signature, underneath your email signature, you could have 3 little links, like learn more, and then a link to the podcast, link to the book, link to a one-on-one session. So you want to have a way for them to engage with you, but it doesn't have to be part of your elevator pitch. And this is why I think elevator pitches get kind of a bad rap, because people don't like selling, and they feel like, oh my gosh, the elevator pitch is kind of schmarmy. It's like a, used car salesman kind of thing. It's so not. And this is why I like to use the word one-liner, because it's really just a sentence or two about the problem that you solve and how you help people. It's not, trying to convince people why they need to work with you. It's just an invitation.
Oh, I hate the term elevator pitch, because it makes me feel like, first of all, I can't catch anything. And if you're pitching at me, it doesn't feel like we're in it together. It feels like you're throwing something at me that's hard and it's going to hurt. And that is how a sales pitch feels as well. And so that invitation is exactly what we all want. And it's an open door.
Yes,
it is.
It's an opportunity for authentic connection with the people, with your people, right? It's just about real connection, and it's not about selling at all.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. If you want to learn more about Chris, you can see her Red Door Designs there. If you're interested in talking to me, you can book time with me. We'll chat all about you. I'll chat you up and down. I even have time this afternoon after Chris and I go over some stuff. So get in touch. Don't be a stranger. And I will see you on Tuesday for my weekly LinkedIn Live, where I will be talking more about how to get your book and your message into the world. See you then.
Thank you.